Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today we're doing a Magistus deck profiles. I'm really excited for you guys because this deck is a really awesome deck that combines a whole bunch of different spellcaster archetypes into one insanely powerful deck. We even just got a new boss monster for this deck in the form of a new synchro monster, which helps out the deck a lot to give us a really awesome new card. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards like getting your name and description in every single video, getting a signed card in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month you're a patron along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of the Magistus of Veer. She is a really awesome card for the deck and one of the best normal summons that you can actually do in this deck because she has the ability to, if she is normal or special summon, you can activate one of the effects to either add a Magistus spell or trap from your deck to your hand or return one of your banished level 4 or lower spellcaster type monsters to your graveyard. And you can also banish her from the graveyard to target a Magistus monster that you control and equip it with one Magistus monster from your graveyard, except a level 4 monster, which is a great effect because the majority of our monsters revolve around equipping monsters to them that are from the extra deck to give them all sorts of different buffs. We then play 3 copies of the Magistus of Crowley. Magistus Crowley is really good. It's actually Alistair the Invoker, but in a younger form. But this card is a really good card for the deck because you can send any spellcaster type monster from your hand or face from your field to the graveyard to special summon this card from your hand, which is a great effect and combos very well in the deck as well because you can declare an attribute and this card becomes that attribute. So you can change this card to wind, water, fire, earth, light, dark, or if you're trying to do something interesting, you can even change it into divine, which is really interesting to actually change it into that. But it also has the ability that you can banish this card from your graveyard to target a Magistus monster you control and equip it with one Magistus monster from your graveyard except a level 4 monster, which is a great effect just to get another monster equipped with one of your extra deck monsters. We're then playing 3 copies of the Magistus of Flames. Magistus of Flames is actually a tuner monster and is how we're going to go into our new boss monster, but this card is really good because it lets you target a Magistus monster you control and equip it with a Magistus monster from your extra deck, and if this card becomes equipped with a Magistus card, then you can special summon a level 4 spellcaster monster from your hand or graveyard in defense position except another copy of himself, but its effects are negated, which is totally fine because the majority of the time when we do this, we're actually going to go in for a synchro play or an XZ play. We then play 3 copies of Endymion, the Magistus Master. This card is a great card in the deck as well, because this card is actually water, and it's actually super easy to search this card with some of the tech cards that we're playing in this deck. But this card has a really neat effect that you get to target one Magistus monster you control and equip it with a Magistus monster from your extra deck. And then you get to target one face-up spell you control, destroy it, and if you do, you draw a card, then place a card from your hand on the bottom of your deck. So there's actually some really interesting synergy with this card and Crowley, because you can actually use those two to make Bahamut Shark and then go into Totally Awesome, which is a great play for the deck just to give you an additional negation because this card can actually turn itself into water, which is the attribute that you're usually going to be changing it to. We then play 2 copies of Performage Trick Clown. Trick Clown is here because it combos very well in the deck because it has the ability, if it's sent to the graveyard, you can target a Performage monster in your grave and special summon it, but its attack and defense becomes 0. And you take 1,000 damage, which this card comes in very handy in the deck because what you're using this card with is a lot of your different Magistus monsters, like your copies of your Crowley, to be able to send it to the graveyard and then revive it back to get out your Crowley pretty much for free and get out a copy of Trick Clown as well on your side of the field. I'm then playing a single copy of Damage Juggler. Damage Juggler is really neat in the deck because you can discard it, and it has the ability that if you take if you're going to take any damage, you can discard this card to the graveyard to negate the activation if you do destroy that card. That's going to be effect damage. And it also has the ability that you can banish this card from the graveyard to add a Performage monster from your deck to your hand, except another copy of himself, which is why I just play a single copy. We then play a single copy of Hat Tricker. Hat Trigger, if there's 2 or more monsters on the field, anywhere on the field, on your opponent's side or on your side of the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. And it's just basically a general extender in the deck to go in for additional plays. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom to stop our opponent from touching the deck. So this card comes in very handy in the deck just to be able to stop our opponent from going in for all sorts of extending plays and searching the deck. We then play 3 copies of Effect Veiler because Effect Veiler is going to stop our opponent's monster effect. So this card comes in very handy in the deck. We play 2 copies of Ghost Mourner. Ghost Mortar comes in handy as well because it stops your opponent from touching the graveyard. And then finally, I play 2 copies of Nibiru to round out the monsters, because Nibiru can shut down a lot of different decks running around right now, especially if your opponent summons all those cards to your side of the field, or to their side of the field. You can pretty much just board wipe them, and there's a lot of different ways in this deck to actually out the Nibiru token, so it comes in very handy in this deck. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Monster Reborn. Monster Reborn is just a great extender for the deck to be able to go in for additional plays by reviving monsters back from the graveyard. 1 copy of Harpy's Feather Duster because it can totally board wipe your opponent's back row so you don't have to deal with spells and traps. 1 copy of Foolish Burial to send your copies of your Trick Clown to the graveyard or your Damage Juggler to the graveyard so you can go in for additional plays. 1 copy of Called by the Grave, because Called by the Grave is going to stop your opponent's hand traps, which comes in very handy for this deck. Then for the Magistus spells, we're going to be playing just a single copy of the Magistus Invocation. I've actually bumped this down to 1 from my previous builds, where I was playing 2. It lets you fusion summon a fusion monster from your extract by using monsters in your hand or field as material, including a spellcaster type monster. And if summoning a Magistus fusion monster this way, you can also use monsters in your spell and trap card zone that are equipped to Magistus monsters to activate this card's effect as well, which is pretty good. I really like this card, but I just feel like 1 is fine for now, because you're searching this card off your Veer to be able to go into 1 card in the extra deck, so it's just a good 1 of right now. We then play a single copy of Thurlogy. Thurlogy is really good because it has the ability to target a Magistus monster that you control and equip with the Magistus monster, except a level 4 monster from your extract, graveyard, or face up from your field. And if you have at least 1 each of a Magistus Fusion, Synchro, Exy, or Link monster in your graveyard, you can equip it with 1 non-Magistus Fusion, Synchro, Exy, or Link monster from your extract instead, which is a pretty good effect. We then play 2 copies of the Magistus Vitra. Vitra is pretty good as a 2 of in the deck. You don't really need 3 anymore, because what it does is it lets you target a level 4 or lower Magistus monster in your graveyard and special summon it. And if a Magistus cards in your spell and trap card zone would be destroyed by your opponent's card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead, which is a pretty good effect just to be able to basically get your cards back on your side of the field. We then play 3 copies of Trismegistus. This card is literally insane for the deck, and the reason that I play this deck because of the artwork combining all those archetypes, and then this card. This card is insane and one of the best cards in the entire deck, because it has the ability that first time each Magistus monster equipped with an equip card would be destroyed by battle each turn, it is not destroyed. And it also has the ability that during your main phase you can special summon a level 4 spellcaster type monster from your hand, but it also has the ability that you can send this face up card to the graveyard to special summon any number of Magistus monsters with different names from your hand. That is really good because you have 4 different ones in this deck to be able to use with this card, so you can just swarm the field with this card. We then play 3 copies of Spell Power Mastery. Spell Power Mastery is a card that I've always bumped between 2 and 3 in this deck. I'm really liking 3 right now because it lets us add an Endymion card from our deck to our hand, which can be your copies of your Endymion Master Magician, which is really, really good in the deck. The Magistus version of him, which is just really good because searching this card to be able to basically give you a level 4 in your hand is just absolutely crazy. I love this card in this deck, and it's a 2 to 3 of in the build, but I really like it right now at 3. So that's it for the spell cards, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing a single copy of the new Synchro Boss Monster. This card is really, really good for what the deck needs. And what this card does is you just take any spellcaster tuner plus a non-tuner monster to summon this card. And if this card is Synchro Summon, you can equip a Magistus monster from your extract to this card. And your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters with the same card type between Fusion, Synchro, Exy, or Link as a Magistus monster that's equipped to this card, which is really insane. It's a Magistus card in your spell and trap card zone, so it can be equipped to any of your other Magistus monsters as well, but as long as they're in the spell and trap card zone, it's pretty much a skill drain for that particular typing, which is really good. And if this card is in your graveyard, you can target a Magistus Magistus card you control, destroy it, and if you do, special summon this card, and you can only use each effect of this card once per turn. It's a 2900 beat stick. It goes in really good in this deck because it's a walking skill drain, and you're trying to summon this card every single game because it's just so good. We then play a second copy of the Divinity Dragon. This card is just a one-of to me. I never really summon it in the deck because it has a really good equip spell effect, but it has the ability, when this card is an equip card, the equip monster cannot be destroyed by opponent's spell and trap effects, which is a pretty good effect just to be able to protect from stuff like Lightning Storm and stuff like that. But it's an overall pretty good card. I usually, again, don't summon it in the monster zone. I just equip it to a monster. We then play a single copy of the Magistus Spell Spirit. This is the card that you're going to be fusion summoning all the time in this deck with the Magistus Invocation, but it has the ability, when this card is equipped, the equipped monster gains 1000 attack and events, and then during the main phase quick effects, you can target one other face of monster on the field and equip this card you control to it, and if it was equipped to an opponent's monster, you take control of that opponent's monster, and also it can't activate its effects. So you can actually use this card as kind of like a change of heart, which is pretty good. We then play just a single copy of the Glass Goddess. She is just a good one-of in the deck because when she's equipped to a monster, the equipped monster can make 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase, which is a pretty good effect. And you can also detach a material from her and then target one level 4 or higher spellcaster type monster in your graveyard and add them back to your hand. But you really just need one copy of her. We then play a single copy of the Wondrous Magistus Witch Wardrobe. I just feel like one copy is totally fine. She was the only one that I actually considered playing 2 of, though. You can detach a material from her to special summon a Magistus from your deck, and also you cannot special monsters from your extract for the rest of the turn, except Magistus monsters, and while this card is equipped to a monster, you can target an effect monster opponent controls and negate its effects until the end of the turn, and you can only use each effect for once per turn. We then play a single copy of Bahamut Shark and a single copy of Totally Awesome, just to give us the added ability of going into a Toad to give us the additional negation, which is really good in this deck. One copy of Heartland Draco. I really like this card in this deck because it lets us go for AA Zeus, and AA Zeus is a great card to just board wipe the opponent, so I play them both as one-ofs in this deck. One copy of Borreload Savage Dragon, because Borreload Savage can give us additional negations, which is really nice. One copy of Access Code because it can pop additional cards on the field and it's a really good boss monster. One copy of Selene, the Queen of the Master Magicians, which is a really neat card to help you climb into your copy of Access Code. Crystron Needle Fiber because it lets us special summon out tuner monsters from the deck and helps us climb into our copy of the Selene, and it's just an overall really good card in the deck. You can actually special summon out your copies of your Effect Veiler off of this, which is a spellcaster type monster, to then link this Effect Veiler and this away to summon out your copy of Selene, which is why Effect Veiler is a really good card in the deck, because it can let you then climb into your copy of Access Code Talker. As long as you can summon one of this, you can basically go into Access Code Talker, which is really neat. And then I'm just playing 2 copies of Artemis, the Magistus Moon Maiden, which is kind of cool because she's actually Selene, but she's the main one that you're going to summon in this deck, because if another Magistus monster is normal or special summon while you control this monster, then you can target one of those monsters and equip this card to that monster, and when this card is equipped to a monster, you can add a Magistus monster from your deck to your hand. So she's basically the searcher of the deck, but I just feel like 2 is totally fine in the deck with all the other tech cards I'm playing in the deck. So anyways, guys, that's it for this deck profile. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really fun deck to play around with. I highly recommend that if you've never played Magistus, you definitely should, because it is an absolutely insane deck. The deck is very inexpensive as well to pick up. The most expensive card, I think, is the copy of Veer, because when I picked them up, they were like $10, but now they might be more or less. I'm not sure, but the majority of the core of the deck is very inexpensive, so you guys should definitely try it out. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next videos. See you later, guys.